Hello, welcome back to Crushing Sounds. My name is Chris, and today I'm looking at the new studio album Resident Human by prog metal band Wheel. So, happy Easter. I'm recording this on Easter Sunday. If you celebrate today, I hope it's been a lovely day. The sun's starting to come out, starting to get a little bit of warmer weather, hence it's soon to be battle jacket weather. Here's mine. A lot of clatter in this room, as you can see. Got the nice heavy metal black backdrop. Don't get used to that, it won't be there for much longer. But anyway, continuing on with our album reviews. If you've been following us on social media, mostly Instagram, you will know I have been particularly excited for the release of the album I'm talking about today. I have championed Wheel's work. I have championed Wheel's music for a long time now. I first discovered them thanks to Bloodstock 2019. It was the last Bloodstock before the event. Prior to going to the festival, I was looking through my schedule of bands I wanted to see throughout the weekend, and I noticed I had a gap on the last day, so I checked out a few bands on the Sophie stage, to see what might interest me. Their name, Wheel, was very simple, very eye-catching, as was their logo, so I had a listen. The track I heard was called Where the Pieces Lie, which was from their new album at the time, Moving Backwards. I thought the track was really cool, groove-oriented prog metal with really good and catchy vocal hooks, so myself and Mike went to see them at that year's Bloodstock, and they were absolutely brilliant. They were better than Boss Keloid, however you pronounce that. Boss Keloid followed Wheel, and we thought Wheel were far and away better, so I was a fan right from the get-go. So ever since, each time the band have dropped a new song leading up to this new album, I have listened to them, shared my excitement on our Instagram page, so to cut a long story short, I was very excited for the release of Resident Human, and the band loves sharing memes on their social media as well, so it's the little things, you know. If you want to keep abreast of my thoughts on bands releasing singles and whatnot, I mostly talk about that kind of thing on our Instagram page because I don't really like to dedicate full videos to one track. So, shameless plug, follow us on Instagram if you want to keep up to date with our thoughts on that kind of thing. We're called Crushing Sounds, look out for the logo. So Wheel are a Finnish prog metal band from Helsinki. Their sound, as I described earlier, is a groove-oriented style of progressive metal. A lot of reviews I've seen have pointed out very clear inspiration from a little band you might have heard of called Tool. Metal Hammer specifically, I think it was them, gave the album a positive review, to their credit, but they also insinuated that this is a great placeholder band to make up for the long wait between Tool albums, which I think is kind of an unfair way to view any band, really. I think this band have plenty of their own quality that sets them apart from Tool, but they do still have a few of the hallmarks that make Tool work, really, but let's just get into some specifics. So with none of that 2-minute overture sound intro nonsense, we go straight into the opening track, Dissapating. It starts the album with a very hypnotic feel to it. The calm, clean guitar lines loop around each other in a very delicate way, as do the vocals when they eventually come in. The way the guitars become distorted and climb upwards in that intensity is done very methodically. It just draws you in really, really effectively, so when it reaches its maximum intensity, it doesn't suddenly shoot up to it. It's built up gradually before you even realise it's happened, which is a really impressive thing to do and what all prog bands should really aspire to achieve. The name Wheel, I think, is really apt for the kind of sound this band is trying to achieve. The way the instruments loop their patterns around each other, such as after the 6-minute mark of Dissapating, is again just so hypnotic. It's music that is just so, I think satisfying is the word to use. It's very satisfying to listen to. It feels like a puzzle being put together in your own head, and you can tell I'm listening to some great prog metal when I bring out ridiculous analogies like that. The second track, Movement, launches into the somewhat more frenetic sound of the band with a title like Movement, you can likely imagine. It's one of those songs where the pulse is a little bit hard to track, but you bang your head to it anyway, trying desperately to find it. The slightly harsh sound of James's vocals are shown here, and okay, when there is some grit in his vocals, he does have an air of Maynard from Tool, but it's only a slight resemblance rather than a mimic. And fuck it, they sound awesome and fit this heavy side of the band really, really well, so it works perfectly for me. The vocals in general are a real highlight on this album. They have a fantastic rhythm to them, catchy melodies where necessary, and add a lot of emotional weight to the more calm moments on the album. This song goes through both of those extremes and is also done in quite a short space of time without it feeling jarring, which is really impressive. So just for the record, I've always enjoyed longer songs. I often joke with people that the best songs ever written are all over 8 minutes in length. Obviously I'm being dramatic there, but my favourite songs do tend to be on the longer side. However, the track Ascend is probably the best example I've ever heard of a prog metal track that does so much, so seamlessly, in less than 5 minutes. The riffs are catchy and really infectious, the vocals go through all intensities, the drums and the bass punch every single moment to give all the emphasis the song needs, and the last 30 seconds or so feel like an epic climax. It's everything this band does well, expertly compressed in under 5 minutes long. I'd go as far as to say this song is absolutely genius. If you're put off by long songs, let this track be the one you check out to introduce yourself to Wheel, because it is fantastic and as good as their longer tracks, of which there are a couple on this album. Speaking of longer tracks, the song Hyperion. Okay, fair enough, this sounds a lot like Tool. I'm not going to dance around the fact that yes, this sounds a lot like a Tool song. The long, brooding guitar notes, thudding pace of the drums and the bass, the breathy vocals, it's all here, really. This track is likely where journalists are coming from when they draw the comparison to Tool, as if this was a single that was released ahead of the album, so you have that preconceived notion going into this that the band sound and are inspired by Tool. I think the track is great, of course, because I love Tool so much. I can't say I've heard a band that has this accurately done a song in the style of Tool and pulled it off this well. And besides, it's not like this throughout the entire song. The latter half is way more in Wheel's style than it is Tool's. There is a guitar line just before the 10-minute mark that you would never hear from Adam Jones, so there are definitely some differences going on. Also, at the end of it, I don't think there's anything wrong with taking the style of a band that you very much admire, if the band do admire Tool at all, but they probably do. As long as you aren't blatantly copying a piece of music verbatim, I see absolutely no harm in wearing your influences on your sleeve. And as I say, it's just one song, and after a few listens, I stopped noticing the similarities. It just became another Wheel song. So, and to be fair, why not sound like one of the greatest bands of all time? Just a thought. The title track is probably the darkest song of the bunch, with a noise-based intro leading into some somewhat menacing guitar lines. It also doesn't waste much time in building in its intensity. Just after the 2-minute mark of this 10.5-minute long song, we have stabbing guitar, drums and bass under similar unsettling guitar lines. It drops down initially for the vocals before climbing back up again, and then repeats this pattern a few more times. This is the long track that is meant to be the big finale of the album, and it certainly does achieve that, with the initial stabbing instruments joining up with the punchy vocals again to lead us into its outro. With Dissapating being a slow climb to open the album, we have an unpredictable yet memorable climax to round the whole thing off. Well, before we have a 2-minute outro to properly close things off, but you know what I mean. The 3 longer tracks on this album feel different in concept from each other, which I really do like. Dissapating was about one long, seamless build-up. Resident Human dips and peaks, leaving you on edge, and to give a really satisfying climax, not knowing where it's going. And Hyperion is Tool. I'm joking. Hyperion is the slowly brooding one, which is Tool. Are there whiffs of other bands on this album? Of course there are. I'm not going to act completely naive to the fact that Resident Human does show its influences a lot. I'm willing to forgive that for a couple reasons. Firstly, it clearly isn't trying to hide it. Wheel are proudly showing what has inspired them. Secondly, I don't see a problem with having influences, and thirdly, they're doing it really fucking well. On top of that, there are plenty of elements of Wheel that they are bringing to the table which are brand new. I haven't heard the riffs this infectiously groovy and irresistible to headbang to in a very, very long time. It's just a solid album that knows what it is and does it to an excellent standard. I think the one thing that might improve a follow-up album is maybe 1 or 2 tracks that do something a little bit out of left field, Nothing massive, just a little something. The 2-minute piano outro is fine as a closer, but maybe something with a bit more substance to it, sprinkled into the album here and there, might add a bit more flavour to the package as a whole. By the end of the second song, you more or less have a clear idea on where this album is going, which is not a bad thing. As I say, it's all done really, really well, but I wasn't discovering a lot of new things to talk about by the time we got to the end of the album. That, however, is a very superfluous thing amongst an otherwise brilliantly executed prog metal album. Every track is fully committed, no matter if it's over 10 minutes or under 5. The album is 50 minutes altogether, but it flies by in what feels like 30 minutes. I'm going to go back to my analogy before because I'm rather proud of it. I don't care what you think. The sound of Wheel is like a puzzle being put together in your own head, which any prog metal band should sound something like that. If you want to hear some modern prog metal that builds on the sound of Tool and showcases some of the best riffs and vocal melodies that this subgenre of metal has to offer right now, then listen to Resident Human by Wheel. It's really good. For fuck's sake.